a bouquet, a shawl, and a small memento as a token of our appreciation. Professor Bhavatosh from Dr. Harisingh Gaur Vishwavidyalaya Sagar, we have been blessed by his presence for the first time at Mahavihara. I would now request again head sir to kindly felicitate our guest of honor, Dr. Khum Prasad Sharma from Tribhuvan University, Kathmandu. Dr. Khum Prasad Sharma, who has been with us for the first time, he came yesterday from Nepal, and so we welcome you to India and we welcome you to Meeta. I request the convener of this program, Head Department of English, to kindly felicitate our guest of honor, Dr. Meeta from Nalanda, Mahavihara. Taking a long journey, madam has been with us, and ma'am would like to have your intellectual inputs in all our sessions, felicitating with a shawl. Now I request my colleague and now the stage is set. So now I deliver this stage to Shakespearean scholar, my esteemed colleague, Dr. Kumar Singh, but not before felicitating him again by Dr. Chandra Singh ji. Finally, his efforts have seen the light of day, and they will be for 2 days continuously. Readiness is all, and I think now we are ready to be addressed by eventually Dr. Kumar Singh.
Thank you, Dr. Umesh, for such a wonderful Shakespearean hosting of the program. Actually, since I was born and I came to senses when I was 5, I started reading William Shakespeare, and since that time, to my best knowledge, I didn't find any writer who talks about almost everything under the sun. When I grew up like a Wordsworthian child, I started being overflowed with the lamb's tales from Shakespeare, which was prescribed for high school students. When I did masters, again my professor told me, let's go for PhD. And I did my PhD on William Shakespeare. I applied non-Aristotelian critics on William Shakespeare. Now, for last 28 years, if somebody asks me, who is the author, who is the writer, who is the playwright, whom you can honestly read or write or teach or discuss, I would say only William Shakespeare. I am very lucky that I have got such a wonderful department in Mahatma Gandhi Central University. And we are luckier enough that under the dynamic and visionary leadership of Honorable Vice Chancellor Sir, Professor Sanjay Srivastava Sir, our university is progressing by leaps and bounds. Not only in education, sports, but also in different walks of life, MGCUB has made its presence felt not only nationally but internationally. And I am also grateful to my Dean, Professor Prasad Singh, who has always been kind enough to just cooperate us, coordinate us to organize such a beautiful program. I am grateful to Dr. Umesh Patra, Dr. Kalyani Hajri, Dr. Balande Chanduba, Dr. Deepak of the department, who have always been with me in conceptualizing this conference that we are organizing today. And the result of this collective responsibility is we have erudite scholars from different parts of India and abroad. We have Professor Bhavatosh sir from Dr. Harisingh Gaur, Central University, Sagar. So welcome sir. I express my gratitude to Dr. Khum Prasad Sharma, who is not only an erudite scholar on Shakespeare, but he is also General Secretary of Language Association of Nepal. So welcome you sir to Mahatma Gandhi Central University. I welcome Dr. Meeta, who is Associate Professor in Nalanda, Mahavihara. And I remember the time when she organized All India Teachers Conference, and that was such a super hit conference that since then we have decided to organize some international conference, and today we are here to be witness of this conference in front of you. Off the stage, we have a very genuine and honest Shakespearean scholar in particular, and a scholar of English literature in general, Professor N.D. Chandra sir, who has been in Central University of Nagaland. This is my privilege that I heard him online. For the first time today, we shall be able to hear his scholarship, his scholarly pursuits. So welcome you sir to Mahatma Gandhi Central University. I welcome Dr. Kalyani Hajri, who is organizing secretary, and she has already organized an international talk on Omelas, and it was I think about migration, marginalization. So welcome you ma'am. I welcome my dear friend Dr. Rajeev Kumar, who is with us from MDU Rohtak. He is Associate Professor of English, Chotu Arya PG College. I welcome Dr. Mukesh ji, Head Department of Education, Dr. Pradeep Malik, Dr. Indra ji. I welcome Dr. Deepak, who is the youngest scholar of the department, his youngest faculty, and he has contributed a lot to enrich our department academically. Recently, he has organized 2 conferences, national conferences, one on disability studies and another on marginalization. So welcome sir. I welcome Dr. Sanjay ji, Dr. Pankaj Singh ji, Dr. Ramlal Bagaria ji, Dr. Govind Prasad Verma ji, Dr. Bablu Pal ji to this international conference. I also welcome my colleagues from different parts of Bihar and India who are offline with us today and those who are joining us online today. The title of the conference, these are the lines which are taken from Shakespeare's famous play, Antony and Cleopatra. And I remember that Tiber has been attacked and Antony is putting his head in the lap of Cleopatra. And the spy informs Antony, "Sir, our country has been attacked by invaders." What Antony says? "Let Rome crumble into pieces. I have got my space." So such beautiful observation, I tell you. And about the beauty of Cleopatra, the poet Barbus says, "Age cannot wither, nor custom still her infinite variety." I am grateful to Umesh that he has lightly, minutely changed the pronoun. Instead of her, he has put his. And I think Shakespeare is something that defies every gender, every language. Shakespeare is neither male nor female. Shakespeare is a Superman. Right? So, why I like Shakespeare most and why this conference is being organized today? This conference is being organized today by Department of English MGCUB to give you a kind of vision, a kind of idea, a kind of attitude to look at life. Why? What Shakespeare gives us? If you read Shakespeare, you cannot confine Shakespeare to any ideology. Marxists say Shakespeare is a Marxist writer. Feminists say Shakespeare is a writer about women empowerment. Postmodern critics say Shakespeare is a postmodern writer. And traditional critics say Shakespeare is a traditional writer. I remember Dr. Johnson who said, "Variety is the spice of life," and that is quite true about Shakespeare. I remember French philosopher Alexander Dumas who wrote, "After God, Shakespeare created the most." So my dear friends, when we talk about adaptation, I agree to Dr. Umesh. If you look at Hollywood or Bollywood, Shakespeare is the writer who was adapted most. In India, we have different kind of Shakespeare: Bhojpuri Shakespeare, Bajika Shakespeare, Maithili Shakespeare, Tamil Shakespeare, Uriya Shakespeare, etc. Those Indians who are not able to read Shakespeare in English, our students are going to perform a play today, adaptation of Othello into Hindi, Sapna. And I tell you that those who have watched the movie Sindoor, Hindi movie, and Omkara, it is adaptation of Othello. If you cannot watch Hamlet, you watch Heather. If you cannot read and understand Macbeth, you watch Makbul. If you cannot read the comedy of errors, you watch the movie Angur. So what I mean to tell, if you cannot read the play Romeo and Juliet, watch the movie Qayamat se Qayamat tak. So what I want to tell you, dear friends, Shakespeare, he does not leave anything untouched. This is because Shakespeare was, like us, not a student of Central University. Shakespeare was studied in the University of Nature. I remember the great critic Lewis and Kajamia, who writes, Shakespeare had nothing but natural genius and daily experience of the stage. Well, when Shakespeare was writing, that was the time when Christopher Marlowe was writing. University wits were writing. They were masters from Cambridge and Oxford, And when Shakespeare came, as Umesh was telling, that the whole world was chasing the rabbits and chicks. But the way Shakespeare has stolen the heart of every one of us is something marvelous, something remarkable that we cannot describe in words. I have friends from political science, and I tell you, you read Julius Caesar and you will get what politics means. You will read about Machiavelli, Shakespeare, the man who read only 4th class. But the man, he is talking about Machiavellian principle. If you are an environmentalist or if you are educationist, we have Omkarji from Education Department, sir, there is a play, As You Like It. In As You Like It, Duke Senior, he was banished from the kingdom by his cruel brother. And he goes to forest of Arden. In the forest of Arden, with the help of his friends, he is able to create a new world. He starts agriculture, he starts cultivation, and he creates a new world in As You Like It. And Duke Senior says, this life exempt from public haunt. I find books in running brooks, tongue in trees, sermons in stones, and good in everything. I am not going to change this world. If you talk about morality, read The Tempest, when finally Prospero says, the rare action lies not in vengeance, but in virtue. And he says, love is the supreme principle of wisdom and knowledge. So, my dear friends, I was reading history play by Shakespeare. He was talking about coalition government. That how this idea came to mind. If you read Henry IV part 1 and 2, there is a character Falstaff. And people today, those people and politicians who are busy with fighting wars, those who are creating differences in borders, they must study Henry IV part 1 and 2. In this play, war is going on, and the mentor of the Prince Hall, Falstaff, about Falstaff, a critic writes, he was wiser than Socrates. He was such an intelligent man. So through Falstaff, Shakespeare attacks the aristocratic, the capitalist, the warmonger people. And Shakespeare talks about the philosophy of life and love. Falstaff says, I am not born to die for no cause. I want to eat, drink and be merry because I am born to love and be loved. And Falstaff, while Prince Hall was fighting war, Falstaff was having good time with his friends. And through Falstaff, William Shakespeare is the only writer in the world who was able to use one word in 8 parts of a speech. So Shakespeare, about whom John Dryden writes, I admire Ben Jonson, but I love Shakespeare. Because Shakespeare, if you read him, if you read his characters, if you read his language, you find he does not being artificial. He is quite natural. He is as natural as life is. So that's why the quotation, age cannot wither him, nor custom still his infinite variety. गालिब का मुझे एक शेर याद आता है, हर चंद हर शय में तू है, हर चंद हर शय में तू है, पर कोई शय तुझसा नहीं है. So Shakespeare is unparalleled. Thomas Carlyle, the great Victorian critic, when Queen Victoria asked him, Mr. Carlyle, now England is the king of the entire world. What is your idea about Queen Victoria? Carlyle answered, Madam, I know empire comes, empire goes. British Empire has come and British Empire will go. But I know there is one thing that does not go. and that is William Shakespeare, that will live forever. So this is my conviction that in the coming 2 days, the deliberations, the discussions, the interactions will definitely open new vistas, new possibilities of interpretation of Shakespeare. And of course, I am really grateful to my colleagues and the respected resource persons who have joined us offline, online. We have Dr. Akchendro Maximilian from Indonesia, who finally refused to be with us physically. He is joining us online. Professor Harisingh from University of Lucknow, who will be joining us online. And we have many people who will join online, but those who have joined offline, they are with us. Those who are joining online, they are without us. But I welcome all of you from the core of heart and from Department of English, Mahatma Gandhi Central University. And I remember the last words of Hamlet, the rest is silence. So I am lacking words to express my emotion, my response to this beautiful academic gathering, and may the Almighty and the great soul of Shakespeare enlighten my students, my family, my friends. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, sir, for a lecture, or may I say monologue. And we also welcome Dr. Shyam Kumaja, Head Department of Sanskrit, who has recently joined us. Thanks a lot, sir, for being here. And as you said, Shakespeare became great because he was not an erudite student of a central university, and when he came to London, then people said that he knew little Latin and less Greek because that was the academic language of that time. He was an upstart crow. He did not come from any university, Oxford or Cambridge, and the other university wits, they disliked Shakespeare for this. They didn't like his language. But just because Shakespeare wrote in a language that is equivalent to Bhojpuri today, that is why English became a global language today. Had he written in a language only scholars could understand, maybe only scholars would have read, like the fate of Greek language or Latin language today, which even the people in Greece and the people in Italy do not speak. Thanks a lot, sir. And now we go to our guest from Tribhuvan University, respected Professor Khum Prasad Sarmaji, the guest of honor. He is also associated with the Literary Association of Nepal for his address.
Thank you for this generous introduction. Respected convener and the head of the Department of English under Mahatma Gandhi University, very most dynamic personality, Dr. Bimalesh Kumar Singhji, a great scholar of Shakespeare. And we have today a keynote speaker, Professor Bhavatosh Indra Guru from Dr. Harisingh Gaur University, India. We have guest of honor, Dr. Meeta ji from Nalanda Mahavihara. We have Dr. Kalyani Hazri, Organizing Secretary, respected professors, scholars, ladies and gentlemen. To all of you here today, thank you for this warm welcome. I would like to express my sincere gratitude to the head of the department, Dr. Bimalesh Kumar Singhji, and the entire organizing committee for inviting me to be a part of this August gathering of this two-day international conference on Shakespeare. In fact, I do not specialize on Shakespeare. I'm simply a curious learner and reader of Shakespeare. Today I will briefly speak on unveiling queer aesthetics and gender fluidity in Shakespeare's some of the sonnets and some of the plays. Respected professors and scholars, William Shakespeare, the Bard of Avon, often known as the greatest playwright in the English language, was a master of subverting norms, either gender and desire. His works do not simply reflect the rigid binaries of his time. They challenge them, they blur them, they reconstruct them in ways that still resonate today. That is why Shakespeare is read from different perspectives, from different parameters, even today. He is more important than he was in the Elizabethan period. He has masterfully woven a tapestry of gender fluidity and queer aesthetics long before modern discussion and discourse on LGBTQ plus identities took shape in the modern era. His sonnets, particularly those addressed to the fair youth, defy rigid heteronormative structures, celebrating love that transcends gender fluidities. The ambiguity in these verses challenges conventional standard of masculinity, affection, and identity. Shakespeare's writings have long been explored through different critical perspectives. However, his representation of queer aesthetics remains an area of continuous scholarly interest for further exploration. In the Elizabethan era, gender and sexuality were understood differently than today. Shakespeare's sonnets, especially those addressed to, I repeat, the fair youth, reveal profound emotional and romantic expressions towards a male subject, raising questions about the nature of homoerotic desire. Similarly, Twelfth Night, plays like Twelfth Night and The Merchant of Venice employ disguise, male bonds, and subversive romantic entanglements to challenge the traditional gender roles and expressions of attractions in a different heterosexual normality. In Twelfth Night, we witness Viola, the character, donning the guise of Cesario, blurring lines between male and female, creating a space where desire exists independent of gender norms, very traditional gender norms. Olivia falls for Cesario, unaware of Viola's true identity, while Orsino's affection for his page borders on homoerotic tension, questioning rigid sexual binaries. Shakespeare utilizes the motif of cross-dressing to explore gender fluidity and same-sex attraction. Viola, disguised as Cesario, becomes the object of Olivia's desire, demonstrating the instability of gender identity when based solely on outward appearance. Olivia's attraction to Cesario reveals the subversive potential of cross-dressing as she falls for a figure she perceives as male, but who is biologically female. That is the case. Olivia confesses, I quote, Even so quickly may one catch the plague, I unquote, likening her sudden love for Cesario to an uncontrollable infection, reinforcing the idea that desire transcends traditional gender binaries. Phuyal's transformation destabilizes normative heterosexuality, as both Olivia and Orsino form attachments to a figure who exists between genders. This can be seen in the line of Judith Butler's concept of gender performativity, wherein gender is enacted rather than innately defined, as Judith Butler claims in her essay. The audience, aware of Phuyal's true identity, witnesses how gender is constructed or reconstructed through behavior, voice, and attire rather than biological determinism. Similarly, in The Merchant of Venice, Antonio's profound love for Bassanio carries unmistakable undertones of queer longing. His willingness to sacrifice himself for Bassanio is not merely platonic, but suggests a deep and depth of devotion that veers into romantic. Meanwhile, Portia's cross-dressing as Balthazar again complicates danger and the desire and gender reinforcement of stereotypes. The relationship between Antonio and Bassanio has been widely interpreted as an example of homoerotic longing masked within the context of male economic dependency. Antonio's willingness to risk his life for Bassanio extends beyond financial generosity, as he laments, I quote from the drama, "In sooth, I know not why I am so sad," I unquote. His melancholy linked to Bassanio's departure, this description of Antonio as the bosom love of Bassanio and his emotional distress at Bassanio's marriage to Portia suggests an attachment that really exceeds the boundaries of mere friendship. Antonio is here seen as a jealous lover whose attraction to Bassanio remains unspoken, yet undeniably present. In this context, the theorist segues the idea of homo, social desire, further elucidates this relationship. Portia becomes a symbolic rival of Bassanio's affection, so the play problematizes heteronormatic frameworks by portraying male bonds as equally, if not mere, intimate than heterosexual relationships. And what about the sonnets? Shakespeare addresses passionate verses to the fair youth, a young man whose beauty and presence captivate Shakespeare's speaker in ways that defy the conventions of masculinity and desire in the Elizabethan period. This is not a secret, coded language. It is overt admiration, intimacy, and love between men. Shakespeare's sonnets provide one of the overt explorations of queer desire in the early modern period, particularly through the poet speaker's passionate affection for the fair youth. The sonnets complicate traditional notions of heterosexual love, as the poet's emotional and physical longing towards the fair youth disrupts early modern expectations of male friendship. In Sonnet 20, the speaker describes the fair youth as having, I quote, a woman's face with nature's own hand painted, I unquote. But possessing a man in hue, this highlights gender fluidity and the erotic tension that challenges heteronormative categorization. The intensity of the speaker's attraction for the fair youth challenges heteronormative assumptions about male relationship in the Renaissance. This complex interplay of gender and desire in the sonnets reflects Michel Foucault's assertion that sexuality is not an inherent identity. Foucault says sexuality is not an inherent identity but a historical construct shaped by cultural discourse. Shakespeare's verse therefore resist fixed definitions of attraction, allowing for an interpretation of pure temporality within the sonnets. Through the lens of queer desire and gender fluidity, Shakespeare's sonnets and plays like Twelfth Night and The Merchant of Venice challenge essentialist notions of identity, presenting love and attraction as mutable, performative, and socially contingent. The poet speaker's devotion to the fair youth in the sonnets, Viola's gender ambiguity in Twelfth Night, and Antonio's intense attachment to Bassanio in The Merchant of Venice all illustrate Shakespeare's resistance to fixed sexual and gender categories. By incorporating cross-dressing, homoerotic tension, and performance-based gender identity, these works, in general, foreground the idea of modern queer theoretical discourse, revealing that desire, like identity, exists on a spectrum rather than within rigid gender binaries. So with this, I conclude my short speech. This is a working paper. I'm really inspired and encouraged by the theme that you have taken up. I'm deeply grateful for this opportunity. I'm also associated with the Land Literary Association of Nepal that was founded in 1981. We just concluded 45th International Conference on Travel and Tour Literature on March 1st and 2nd. Every March 1st and 2nd, we organize conference, and next conference, 2026, is being held near the border, Janakpur, the birthplace of Sita. So I invite you all to write papers. I will invite my senior colleagues. And we have also a journal. We just came out with 38th volume. The same journal by the Association Literary Studies. It's online, having VOI, indexed in NetZor. So I also request professors and scholars to write papers and send papers to our journal. It is on website, it is indexed on NetZor, it is easily visible, literary studies. So, this opportunity, actually we organize conferences, seminars for a number of reasons. Knowledge sharing is the time. Apart from that, it really promotes literary scholarships. It builds institutional reputation. I'm deeply honored and privileged to be a part of this event, but because of my different roles at the university, I have to go back today. I could not be with you. Tomorrow, I'm very sorry. Actually, I wanted to be with you. I wanted to participate in the discussion. I wanted to learn many scholars, many perspectives on Shakespeare, but because of my role at the university, I have to be back. Once again, thank you all. Thank you, the organizer and the convener. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, sir, for a very academic engagement with the queer theoretical aspects in relation to the plays as well as the sonnets of Shakespeare. Till now, we do not have any conclusive evidence, even though we have a cutout of Shakespeare, whether Shakespeare was a male or a female. Some assume that maybe it was just a female who wrote under the pseudonym of William Shakespeare in order to conform to the Elizabethan society. And as you have rightly pointed out, there are explicit queer themes which were noticed only after queer theory emerged. So he wrote first and theory emerges later. When post-colonialism emerged, we found Caliban. When queer theory emerged, we found the fair youth. Similarly, with feminist studies, we find a female villain as a strong character. No male writer has written such a negative portrayal of Lady Macbeth the way Shakespeare has. So one has to be a woman to understand a woman in that negative sphere. Perhaps Shakespeare had both the genders. Thanks a lot, sir, for your very engaging and intellectual discussion. And now, with respect and humility, I request Dr. Meeta from Nalanda, Mahavihara to address the gathering.
Respected convener of the program, Dr. Kumar sir, who is an associate professor in Mahatma Gandhi Central University, respected Professor Bhavatosh, Indra from Dr. Harisingh Gaur University, Sagar, who is the keynote speaker. The guest of honor, Dr. Khum Prasad Sharma, Tribhuvan University, Kathmandu, whom we have heard just now. Dr. Kalyani Hazri, who is the organizing secretary. Dr. Chandra from Central University of Nagaland. Distinguished guests, faculty members, and dear students and research scholars. First of all, I would like to thank the Vice Chancellor of this university and Bimle sir for giving me an opportunity to share the dais as a guest of honor. It is an honor to stand before you today as the guest of honor at this international conference on Shakespeare. As we gather here from different corners of the globe, a shared passion for the bard's works and our desire to delve deeper into the complexities of this art. Today I am going to speak on Shakespeare Reimagined, the timeless echo of his genius. What's in a name? Juliet's timeless question in Romeo and Juliet echoes through the ages, yet it is Shakespeare's own name that has become synonymous with the very essence of human storytelling. 4 centuries after his death in 1616, William Shakespeare, the Bard of Avon, remains an unparalleled cultural force, his work etched into the DNA of global civilization. From the stages of Elizabethan England to modern digital adaptations, his plays and sonnets have transcended time, language, and geography. Through a tapestry of historical analysis, linguistic exploration, and modern interpretations, we uncover why Shakespeare's legacy is not merely preserved in dusty folios, but pulses vibrantly in the heartbeat of contemporary life. The Globe Theatre, rebuilt in 1997 as a testament of his enduring appeal, was originally a collaborative venture, a wooden O where Henry Five's chorus implored audiences to piece out our imperfections with your thoughts. This symbiotic relationship between playwright and spectator birthed a new theoretical language, one that democratized emotion. When Hamlet soliloquized, he spoke not to Danish royalty, but to the apprentice in the pit, grappling with his own mortality. Shakespeare's genius lay in his duality, a commercial playwright who penned crowd-pleasing spectacles while embedding psychological complexity that would prefigure Freudian analysis. Shakespeare has enriched the English vocabulary, and we all call him the architect of modern English. Shakespeare's linguistic genius lies not merely in coining words, but in reshaping the very foundation of English during its most volatile period. The 16th century saw the language shedding its medieval constraints, fueled by Renaissance, intellectual fervor, global exploration, and the printing presses, democratization of texts. Latin and Greek dominated scholarly discourse, but English was still viewed as a vulgar tongue until Shakespeare weaponized its flexibility. Unlike his contemporaries, who leaned on classical rigidity, he treated English as a living organism. As linguist David Crystal observes, Shakespeare didn't just use English, he performed it, stretching syntax, inventing words, and bending grammar to mirror the chaos and beauty of human thought. In the late 16th century, the language and transition from Middle English to early modern English, a period of lexical famine, as England lacked the vocabulary to match its burgeoning global ambition. At that time, Shakespeare, part playwright, part linguistic alchemist, filled gaps in the lexicon by repurposing nouns into verbs, like to elbow, verbs into adjectives, dawn-fingered, and grafting prefixes, suffixes into existing words. Uncomfortable, fashionable, and lonely sprang from this fearless experimentation. The Oxford English Dictionary cites Shakespeare as the first recorded user of over 1700 terms, though scholars argue very likely colloquialisms he merely popularized. Words like eyeball, upstairs, and zany, that is taken from Love's Labour's Lost, reveal his knack for capturing bodily and spatial experiences. His playful conversation of noun into verbs, to ghost, to season, reflected a society in flux where social hierarchies and global horizons were expanding. Phrases such as green-eyed jealousy from Merchant of Venice and in a pickle from The Tempest endured as cultural shorthand, providing his ability to crystallize abstract emotions into visceral imagery. His linguistic playfulness also birthed compound words that mirrored Renaissance England's expanding worldview. Sea change, star-crossed, and wild goose chase evoke a society grappling with exploration, fate, and chaos. As James Sappho writes in Shakespeare and the Jews, Shakespeare's language was a mirror held up to England's colonial and mercantile ambitions. His metaphors transcend ornamentation. They became psychological frameworks. Cognitive linguistics like George Lakoff posits that metaphors structure human cognition, and Shakespeare's imagery laid foundational framework for modern psychology. Macbeth's dagger of the mind distills paranoia into a hallucinatory object, while Hamlet's sea of troubles maps existential despair onto the vast, unknowable ocean. These metaphors were not mere turns of phrase but tool to dissect the human psyche, Centuries before Freud, in Othello, Iago's declaration that jealousy is the green-eyed monster with that mark the meat it feeds on, personifies envy as a self-cannibalizing beast, a metaphor so potent it remains a cornerstone of Western discourse on emotion. His metaphors became cognitive maps, guiding later writers like Dickens. It was the best time, it was the best of time, it was the worst of times. And Orwell, Big Brother is watching you. Shakespeare bent syntax to mirror emotional chaos. In King Lear, the Mad King's fragmented cry, never, 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 defies grammatical norms to convey unbearable grief. He frequently omitted articles, once more unto the breach, or inverted word order, fair is foul and foul is fair, to create rhythmic urgency. These deviations, once dismissed as errors, are now celebrated as proto-modernist innovations. His linguistic innovations were inherently democratic. The Globe Theatre's mixed-class audiences demanded language that could bridge intellectual and visceral realms. His blend of high rhetoric, is this a dagger which I see before me, and the earthly slang, a plague on both your houses, created a linguistic bridge between aristocrats and apprentices. Shakespeare's true legacy is not in preserving English but in ensuring his evolution. He treated language as a living organism, mutable, adaptive, and infinitely renewable. In a world where emojis and algorithms threaten to flatten expression, Shakespeare's legacy reminds us that language at its best is not a tool but a living, breathing force, one that still bends the knotted English oak to its will. William Shakespeare's work endured as cultural touchstones not merely for their poetic brilliance but for the profound evacuation of themes that resonate across time and geography: love, power, betrayal, and mortality. These universal motifs act as prisms, refracting the complexities of human condition into narratives that transcend their Elizabethan origins. Shakespeare's work explored timeless themes like power, love, betrayal, and human conditions, each offering profound insights that resonate across eras. Hamlet's existential anguish serves as a reflection of modern disquiet. In Hamlet, a prince grapples with doubt and the inevitability of death, questioning the very meaning of existence. At the heart of Hamlet lies a question that has haunted humanity long before the term existentialism entered the philosophical lexicon. To be or not to be, that is the question. The prince's soliloquy distills the agony of confronting life's futility, the paralysis of overthought, and the dread of unknown. This introspection transcends Renaissance Denmark, echoing in the works of thinkers like Soren Kierkegaard and Albert Camus, who grappled with the meaning in an indifferent universe. Modern adaptations such as The Lion King's Simba, grappling with guilt and purpose, or films like Akira Kurosawa's The Bad Sleep Well demonstrate the play's adaptability. This movie is a corporate thriller on Hamlet, and the same is the King Simba's, the animal characters are there, and it is the same theme of revenge has been shown in this. Macbeth's relentless ambition entangles him in a corrosive dance with morality. Shakespeare's Macbeth is a searing study of ambition's allure and its capacity to erode morality. Macbeth's tragic descent from loyal general to a tyrannical ruler mirrors the rise and fall of modern autocrats, corporate moguls, and political schemers. His descent into guilt and paranoia serves as a cautionary tale about the devastating consequences of ambition without restraint. The play's relevance is stark in narratives like House of Cards, where Frank Underwood's Machiavellian machinations parallel Macbeth's vaulting ambition. Shakespeare's insight into the human psyche, how ambition breeds paranoia, isolation, and self-destruction, remains a cautionary tale for any era obsessed with power. In Romeo and Juliet, two star-crossed lovers defy the deep-seated hatred between their families, highlighting the destructive power of social divisions. Their love, though passionate, is doomed by fate and the rigid structures of the world. Their story, set against feuding families, transcends its 16th century roots to critique division in all forms, racial, cultural, and ideological. The play's core theme, love as both transient and tragically fragile, speaks to modern struggle from LGBTQ plus rights in repressive regimes to interfaith relationships in polarized societies. In King Lear, the aging king's decision to divide the kingdom leads to madness, exposing the fragility of familial bonds and the corrupting force of power. His tragic flaw, pride, and blindness to genuine love reflects modern struggles with aging, inheritance, and emotional neglect. As Lear laments, how sharper than a serpent's tooth it is to have a thankless child. Othello portrays the devastating effects of jealousy and manipulation as a noble general's love is shattered by deceit. Iago's psychological warfare preys on Othello's insecurities, illustrating how prejudice, mistrust corrode relationship. Intrigue of Julius Caesar examines the moral ambiguity of power and the consequences of idealism. In Antony and Cleopatra, the conflict between personal passion and political duty unfolds as a Roman general's love for Cleopatra threatens his position. The destructive allure of love and the tension between desire and responsibility continue to resonate in modern struggles to balance career and relationship. Coriolanus presents the downfall of a war hero whose disdain for the public leads to exile, offering a critique of elitism and the volatility of mass opinion. His rigid pride and unwillingness to compromise find parallels in contemporary debates on leadership, authenticity, and populism. Across these works, Shakespeare delves into the complexities of human nature, offering timeless reflections on ambition, love, betrayal, and societal dynamics that remain relevant still today. Shakespeare's brilliance lies in his refusal to simplify human nature into clear-cut heroes or villains. His characters, whether Hamlet's indecision, Macbeth's unchecked ambition, or Juliet's impulsive love, are achingly human, embodying the contradictions that define real life. To conclude, Shakespeare's enduring legacy continues to shape our understanding of life and humanity. His works remind us that all the world's a stage and all the men and women mere players, urging us to embrace every role we play in the grand performance of life. As we move forward, we recognize that what's past is prologue, setting the stage for new beginnings built on the wisdom of the past. Even as we confront our imperfections, we learn that the fault, dear Brutus, is not in our stars but in ourselves, inspiring personal responsibility and growth. His insight that we are such stuff as dreams are made on and our little life is rounded with a sleep speaks to the fragile, transient beauty of our existence, while his counsel to remain authentic. This, above all, to thine own self be true, guides us in our everyday choice. Finally, by understanding that there is a tide in the affairs of men, which, taken at the flood, leads on to fortune, we are encouraged to seize opportunities and shape our destinies. Together, these timeless reflections affirm that Shakespeare continues to resonate, bridging centuries and uniting us in the shared experience of being human. Thank you, and thank you very much for listening patiently to me. Thank you.
It's a lot for a very comprehensive bird's eye view of almost all the themes that Shakespeare touched in his plays. And you rightly said that Shakespeare's plays are with us today because they talk about universal human values. And yes, Othello is not about a war general. It is just about any husband who is jealous that his wife or his spouse or her spouse may be having an affair with anyone else. King Lear is not about a king. It's about the trust of any old man who distributes his property among his or her children and does not have a place of shelter in old age. Romeo and Juliet is not about two clans, but is always about the perpetual dichotomy between love and society. And therefore, because he highlighted these emotions at a very human level, maybe we love and celebrate the enduring legacy of Shakespeare, even under the Balwa Bridge, Motihari. And now we respect. Now I respectfully invite up to the podium the keynote speaker of the inaugural session, Professor Bhavatosh Indra Guruji, for his address to the gathering. Professor Dr. Harisingh, Gaur University, Sagar. Sir.
Thank you very much. At the very outset, I should like to be thanksgiving to the head of the Department of English, Dr. Kumar Singh, for having invited me. But above all, I should like to be once again thankful. The word thanksgiving shall carry a special import and distinction. As we all know, in Prelude, William Wordsworth says and always says and keeps saying and goes on to say, the morning rose in memorable warm, the sea lay laughing at a distance, and my heart was thanksgiving to the day. Therefore, this is one of the pursuits of virtue or one of the pursuits of wisdom. To that extent, once again, I'm thanksgiving to the Honorable Vice Chancellor of this university, Professor Sanjay Kumar Srivastava, for having once again invited me for this august and distinguished occasion. It would be pertinent at the outset to make mention of the fact that Professor Sanjay Kumar Srivastava and me were the inmates of the great Brahmaputra hostel of Jawaharlal Nehru University, which itself is a hallmark of immortality and eternity. As the name would suggest, Brahm suggests eternity, and Brahm is also suggestive of immortality. In the next place, once again, I am also thanksgiving to all the other members. I can understand. One of my friends from JNU, Dept, who happens to be just in front of me, I happen to face him, and he also happens to have been facing me. So that is also there. And Professor Chandra of Nagaland Central University, and all the distinguished, rather worthy audience of this august gathering. While we proceed to put up our observations on one of the great dramatists, unfortunately, so far none of the commentators or none of the interpreters of William Shakespeare has enabled us to know in what ultimately his greatness consists. this is rather an unfortunate thing that has happened to the critique of William Shakespeare. Should you take up three distinguished interpreters of William Shakespeare, namely, to begin with, following the chronology, John Dryden, Samuel Johnson and G. Wilson Knight. In none we can understand. Of course, in Wilson Knight, we have rather a faint hint and suggestion of the very question, nature or quantum of greatness of William Shakespeare. But he also misses the mark. To that extent, this opportunity comes to be rather unique and really very different, wherein we are proceeding to carry out an evaluation by having offered some interpretations to the nature of greatness of William Shakespeare. Ultimately, the thing that should engage our attention and invite our notice would be in what, once again, the question that T.S. Eliot would take up for consideration in terms of his analysis of John Milton. Everybody says John Milton is a great poet, but in what his greatness consists? This is the question he takes up, and so successfully he could answer this question throughout. And therefore, only two things he could understand, which are really capable of making John Milton a great poet, supreme poet of the literatures across the world. First is auditory imagination, and the second is hypertrophy of auditory imagination. Beyond that, there is nothing finer in the artistry of John Milton. Similarly, in Shakespeare, the question is pertinent, and accordingly, the question is related to the greatness of William Shakespeare. It must seem to us that the greatness of William Shakespeare is underlain in the very nature of idealized artistry he goes on to conceive and compose. His artistry, the artistic situation that is woven around his various and really disparate presentation of the experiences through the various characters, nearly suggestive of all the 9 rasas of human civilization. So therein we understand that he conceives and he composes, and altogether he goes on to expound an ideal artistry. Now, because of certain limitations in terms of Western knowledge system, the very nature and distinction of ideal artistry comes to be difficult to be assessed and enumerated. For example, when Dryden shall take up this question, he would understand that Shakespeare is great because he had the largest and most comprehensive soul. And when Samuel Johnson similarly would take up this question, he will come to the conclusion that Shakespeare is great because in him we have an opportunity to extend our vision in terms of observation and experience. Each of the characters of William Shakespeare shall engage our observation and accordingly shall enable us to put forth the very facts on account of which we proceed to experience the thing. Now you see, these are not unique perspectives through which we can understand what an ideal artistry is. Vishwanath, the author of Sahitya Darpana, would so brilliantly and so astonishingly, I should say, shall come to the enumeration of what he could understand by ideal. He is commenting on a great Natya Sastram of Bharat Muni, and he would say, Sattvodrekad Akhanda Swaprakāsānanda Chinmaya. Just listen to him and see the beauty of perfection. This is the consummation of knowledge. Sattvodrekad Akhanda Swaprakāsānanda Chinmaya Vedhyantar Spars Sunyo Vedhyantar स्पर्श शून्यो कैश्चित प्रमातृभि लोकोत्तर चमत्कार प्राण स्वकारवत swakaravad bhinnatvenaya ma swadhyate rasa. So this therefore is the greatness. These are the various things which go on to make an ideal artistry, distinguished artistry, which sometimes is qua artistry. Sat, which is a principle of harmony, and therefore also the principle of purity, wherein we have the idea of innocence comprehended, and which is also distinguished from Raj and Tam. Sat. So in William Shakespeare, we have this particular situation, largely inhering upon all the great works written by him. Next is Akhand. Akhand is principle of continuity. And accordingly, we come to understand that in Shakespearean presentation of the things of life, there is this continuity, continuous, which is unbroken, unhampered, and it goes on. It is perennial in nature, absolutely. Sattvodrekad akhanda swaprakashanand chinmaya. Swaprakashanand, self-illuminating, capable of having, it shines on its own. It doesn't seek the help, it doesn't seek the support of any other thing, and consequently it goes on to shine. Sattvodrekad akhand swaprakashanand chinmaya, and on such an account it becomes knowledge. It is an embodiment of knowledge. Sattvodrekad akhand swaprakashanand chinmaya vedhyantar sparsa sunyo. Vedhyantar, not affected by the worldly conditions and worldly circumstances, and to that extent it becomes vedhyantar. Vedhyantar sparsa sunyo kasyat pramatrike. And the next part of the observation is lokottar chamatkar prana. Lokottar. Always enabling us to rise above the conditions and circumstances. And chamatkar, it comes to us in the form of chamatkar. Lokottar chamatkar prana kasyat pramatrike swakaravad bhinnatvenaya ma swadhyate rasa. So these are therefore chamatkar, what Shakespeare does, Ashcharya for the matter of that. Those of us who have gone through Mahavihara are always reminded of this particular idea of Ashcharya. Yaksh shall put up this particular question to Yudhishthir, what the Ashcharya is, and Yudhishthir shall go on to answer. So in William Shakespeare, we have this chamatkar. Now you see, ideal artistry, where an artistry is to be ideal, it shall have to be composed and conceived around these unique distinctions. And therefore, while we read Kalidas in Abhigyan Sakuntala, we have this suggestion. Kalidas would say, Gahanta Mahisha Nipan Sarilam, Shringaramos Taditam, Chhayabaddha Kadambakam, Mrigakulam, Romantabhyashatu. This is one. And in the other place, he would say, Griva Bhadanga Viram, Muhurnurpatati Syandane Datta Drishti, Pascharadhen Pravishta, Saratpatan, Hayad Bhuyasa Purvakayam, the Bhair Valid, Shram Vivarta Mukhambar Shivi, like that. So this is the beauty which is unparalleled. And similarly, now having read all these, while we proceed to the reading of William Shakespeare, right at the beginning of Macbeth, we have two absolutely, I should say, the most consummate pieces of observation, wherein Banquo and Duncan are having conversation. Then Duncan would say, this castle hath a pleasant seat, sir. Just look at this. This castle hath a pleasant seat, sir. The air sweetly and nimbly recommends itself unto our gentle senses. This is the place where you can understand, the great unification that goes on to take place. Object becomes the subject and subject becomes the object. And then, the Banquo shall put forth his great reply. He would say, this guest of summer, the temple haunting martlet, does approve by his loved masonry that the heavens breath smells swingly here. No jetty freeze nor kind of quantities, but where the most breed and haunt and hath met pendant bed and procreant cradle. I have observed the air is delicate. We can just understand that the sheer beauty of these observations. One that would appear in Kalidas and the other one that would come up for our consideration in Macbeth. And later, of course, while we proceed to take up other dramas, we will have the similar way. Then the question arises, what is so important? Because of what distinctions Shakespeare is capable of writing, and at the same time, other dramatists are hardly in a position to write, like William Shakespeare. One of the answers that I could propose for this uniqueness in Shakespeare is that he has certain gifts in him on account of which he is in a position to read the experience. And experience is fundamental to the conception of great artistic situation. What matters in an artistry is not the thought, not the knowledge, not the idea, but experience. It is only the experience that is alone, and alone capable of making an artistry great. And therefore, Bhartrhari, the author of Vakyapadiyam in Brahma Kandam, shall say, Ekasya Sarva. Ultimately, what is the reason? What is the essence? Then he would say, Ekasya Sarva Bijasya Yasya Che Manekatha Bhoktri Bhokta Rupen Bhog Rupen Che Sthiti. This is the account which is unbelievable. Shakespeare could Bhoktri Bhokta Rupen, essence is one, which is uncontradicted in nature, which is total in nature and therefore perfect in nature. Purnasya Purnamidam Purnamadaya Purnamevatit Purnauchyate. To that extent, there shall be no negotiation. To the extent to which we are concerned, preoccupied with totality, we understand that we don't make any negotiation. Shakespeare also doesn't make any negotiation whatsoever, so far as the question of totality is concerned. And what the totality is in terms of an artistic situation, ideal artistic situation, is now being answered by Bhartrhari in Vakyapadiyam, who say, Ekasya sarva bijasya yasya che manekadha bhoktri bhokta rupen bhog rupen cha sthiti. See, bhoktri bhokta rupen bhog rupen. When three have become one and all, then this uniqueness emerges, comes into being. Totality is created, which is pure, innocent, and therefore total and complete in nature, which doesn't go any contradiction, almost like Brahma Swada Sahodara, no contradiction. So while we read William Shakespeare, to say nothing of Macbeth, rather, any other drama, King Lear, let us take up King Lear, then there also he is equally admirable and worthy of attention. He would say, men must endure their coming hence, even as their going thither, ripeness is all. Ripeness is all. And this is beautiful. Ripeness. Ripeness means bliss is all, anand is all. What therefore is the goal of life? Then answer according to William Shakespeare is that anand is the goal of life. Anand. In Brahma Sutra, we have further enumeration of this idea of anand. At the beginning of Brahma Sutra, sage bearing the solemnity of divine shall appear and shall engage him in universal questionings, and he would say, Ath iti Brahma Jigyasa. Ath iti athado Brahma Jigyasa. Desire, therefore to know Brahma. Then how to know Brahma? Then he shall outline to rather committed ways of knowing Brahman. First he would say, Tatatu Samanvaya, by Samanvaya. By Samanvaya, reconciliation. Reconciliation, we can proceed to the knowledge of Brahman, and Anandamayo Abhyasat, harmony, taking into consideration that harmony ultimately is the essence of life, we can proceed to know Brahman. So here we were discussing, the nature of ideal artistry in William Shakespeare. When he says ripeness is all, then he is enabling us to know that beyond this world, beyond this apparent world, which is full of logic, which is full of opposition, which is full of division, which is full of ignorance, and which is full of indulgences, which is full of infatuations. And therefore we have coming hence and going down. Every now and then we become parts and parcels of endless becomings. And we strive to become what we are not. So coming hence and going thither, but ever, while we rise above on account of certain meditations, certain deliberations, certain reflections, which are not intellectual but which are intuitive in nature. We can understand that we are in a position to come to terms with what Shakespeare would say, ripeness is all, Anand is all, and Anand therefore, in Srimad Bhagavad Gita once again, the stages are identified. How does it all begin? Then it begins on the note of An, Pran, Gyan, Vigyan, and then Anand. Now, once we commit ourselves to such graduation of experience, we can understand that we have the cumulative orders of succession created, and we proceed to rise. We go on to rise from An to Pran, from Pran to Gyan, from Gyan to Vigyan, and from Vigyan to Anand, and then to Moksha. So ripeness is all. This is one of the things. Now, further enumeration on the matter would therefore be to take up other questions which are related to what at the beginning Sri Gita would state, Dharma Kshetre Kurukshetre Samaveta Yujutsaha. Dharma Kshetra, truth, righteousness, and Kurukshetra, evil or unrighteousness. Duryodhan is an embodiment of evil, not because he is Duryodhan or anybody else, only because of the fact that he is harboring himself on divided self. So to that extent he undergoes division and opposition, and he becomes rather, an embodiment of evil. And on the other hand we have Arjuna, Dharma Kshetra, truth, righteousness, goodness. In Platonic terms it is good, the idea of good. Sun that shines and sun that illuminates. And sun that illuminates is in itself illuminated. Grahayatvam grahakatvam cha dve shakti tejaso yatha. Being and becoming one and all. Transcendent and immanent becoming one and all. Since Shakespeare, we understand that while characters appear, for example, Hamlet shall appear in this world, the world of drama, and then in what manner he goes on to appear, what particular emergence does he achieve or shall he achieve, then we understand that he appears in this world which is divided in itself, which is contradicted on account of itself. Therefore, it is pertinent on the part of Hamlet to put up the same disposition, and therefore he would say, I put this antic disposition on in order to cope with all the melees, all the hypocrisies, all the pretensions, and all the sordid, innocuous presentations of this world. Unless and until I put this antic disposition, I understand that I shall not be in a position to cope with this world. Now for us who proceed to take up William Shakespeare being one of the cases of the fullness of Shakespeare, what does it mean? What is this antic disposition? Bhagavad Pad Shankar in his Bhashya on Upanishad shall expound this conception of Maya, Sad what is Maya? Then so brilliantly he would pick up this question and answer, what is Maya? Then he would say, Maya is Sad, Maya is Asad, and Maya is also Anivarchaniya. Anivarchaniya. Sat, Asat, Anivarchaniya. Real or unreal, very difficult to say. For us it is real because we live in this world, but for it is, for someone it is unreal because we know that we are not going to live in this world for a very long time. But such a decision is very difficult to be made. So Maya, even gods are called upon to put them under this spell of Maya. All the various incarnations of Sri Vishnu shall undergo the spell of Maya and come to terms with the vicissitudes of life. So similarly, Shakespearean characters who would appear in the world of drama, in the artistry of drama, are confronted with a world which is full of hypocrisies, full of pretensions, and consequently, in order to engage themselves so successfully with this world, they have to take up this Maya, and consequently they go on engaging themselves. Fair is foul. One of the most beautiful examples of such a situation is fair is foul and foul is fair, over through the fog and filthy air. Paradox, which this world is all about. The hypocrisy and pretension, the unreality, which this world is all about. And to that extent, Macbeth shall put himself to the examination of this world, but he realizes very soon, and understand that, there is the worthlessness in this world. And to that extent, he would say, hereupon this bank and shoal of time, we would jump the life to come. And the greatest realization comes only towards the end of the great drama, wherein he is expounding the philosophy. Philosophy is one of the achievements of William Shakespeare. Those of us who have read As You Like It would have the discernment to recall what Touchstone says to Corin. He says, Hast thou any philosophy in thee? Hast thou any philosophy in thee? And there is the philosophy. Philosophy means, by philosophy we shall mean, as of now, the idealized vision of this world, where you have an ideal and you thrive through that ideal. You progress and ultimately you submit yourself to that ideal or those ideals. So Macbeth, I would say, here upon this bank and shoal of time we would jump the life to come, and then later this realization comes and he submits finally to the authority of divine, which is an idea for the sake of liberation. Tomorrow, see the progress of Macbeth. The entire career of Macbeth is exemplary. He appears as a role model, one of the role models from whom we can learn so many things. Tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow. Continuity. Once again, the question of continuity. One of the achievements of the artistry of William Shakespeare is to introduce this idea of continuity of experience. Continuity of experience, which is one of the foundations of the philosophy of Srimad Bhagavad Gita. Tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow. It is hot, it is continuous and shall forever be continuous. Beyond that, there is nothing final in this world. So, we can understand that primarily what Shakespeare does is that he goes on to study the self, integrated self, not the divided self. And therefore characters are asking these questions on many occasions, on many times. And they say, each of the characters will say, I am Hamlet still. Am I really the Hamlet? I am Hamlet still. And then there is a question mark. Am I really? I am King Lear still. Am I really? I am Othello still. Am I really? And I am Antony still. Am I really? And to that extent, we understand that the question of self is so well asked, proposed, and answered. Now you see, in the process, few other things come up for our consideration, which have not been precisely pointed out by those critics who have claimed themselves to have studied William Shakespeare. First is epistemology of his speech. And in William Shakespeare, we understand that this epistemology of his speech is rather distinguished in nature. In aphorisms preparatory to Aitareya Upanishad, the philosophy of his speech is expounded, wherein we are told, in the form of a prayer mounted on divine, we are told, rather the sage shall say, may my mind rest in my speech, and may my speech rest in my mind. And may my mind and may my speech rest in myself, and may myself rest in Brahma, which is supreme consciousness. So speech is, and the way in which Shakespeare goes on to give expression to 4 orders of his speech. He shall begin with Vakhri, then proceed to Madhyama, and then he would come to terms with Pashyanti, and finally he would evolve himself into what we call Vak. Every character to begin with shall listen so carefully, and Hamlet therefore shall go on to listen so carefully, having lended his ear to everybody, all the various persons. And finally he would say in the first place, this too solid flesh shall melt and resolve itself into a dew. This is how we can understand he goes on to become one who understands the true epistemology of his speech. Progression, expansion, evolution, we can understand from lower to the highest, lowest to the highest, from Vakhri to Vak. This too solid flesh would melt and resolve itself into a dew, giving up this worldly incarnation and entering into the life of divine, wherein he understands that he is eternity, he is having eternity, he is having immortality, and he is perennially grafted on the significance of bliss. Similarly, we would find Othello. Having committed the sin of murder, he would similarly put him to the similar examination, and he would say, put out the light, and put out the light, and put out the light. This reminds us of a great Lord in Uttar Ramcharitam of Bhavabhuti, who, finding himself unable to bear the pangs of separation, shall fall upon the lamentation and would say, Kimapi, Kimapi. Just listen to the beauty of this great observation, which is an observation of lamentation. And the great Lord himself is saying, Kimapi, Kimapi, Mandam, Mandam. Kimapi, Kimapi, Mandam, Mandam, Mandama Sakti Yoga. Put out the light, and put out the light, and put out the light, and put out the light. See the beauty, you can compare. So to that extent, ultimately, what matters and what really matters in William Shakespeare is this study, profound, exceptional, unique, and rather serious study, which he perhaps doesn't learn from the native tradition, because Western tradition, Western knowledge system is not intuitive. It is not intuitive. By no means it is. Rather, it is intellectual. It is only Sanatan tradition, which is intuitive in nature. So, to that extent, we can understand all these things. So many issues are there so many issues are there on which we can go on reflecting, brooding, meditating, speculating, so on and so forth, without having ever come to terms with what ultimately the because it doesn't have any beginning or end. Anadinidhanam, Bhartrhari would say in Vakyapadiyam, Brahmakandam of Vakyapadiyam, Anadinidhanam Brahma Swarupam, Shabda Tattvam Yadaksharam, Vivarte Artha Bhaven, Prakriya Jagato Yata. Like Brahma, Shabda doesn't have any beginning. Brahma is beginningless, without having any beginning, without having an end. Shabda, which is Tattva, doesn't have any beginning, nor does it have any end. So, William Shakespeare is one such artist in whom we come to terms with, this rather, both the ends are open. Most of the post-structuralists would take up this question and would focus their attention on erasure, erase everything, no beginning, no end. In William Shakespeare, following Bhartrhari, we can come to terms with, and therefore, with such a great distinction, he would come to terms with, all the various observations which we can understand, we can always proceed to understand, and we must go on to understand. Towards the end, I should like to just always thinking of rather, those great sages and seers in Upanishad, especially Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, wherein they say, Vayur anilam amritam athedam, bhasmantam shariram, krito ismar, kritam ismar. So therefore, knowledge, what matters and what matters alone is knowledge, not the other. In Shakespeare, we have this knowledge. And knowledge is really very meaningful, very significant, only because of the fact that it proceeds to distinguish, as Nachiketa in Kathopanishad would distinguish Shreya from Prey. Shreya, which is good, is to be distinguished from Prey, which is pleasant, good and pleasant. So no artist, no art could ever strive to. Kalidas is great, Bhavabhuti is great, only because of the fact that all through their discourses, along their dramas, they proceed to distinguish Shrey from Prey, as Nachiketa does. Similarly, in William Shakespeare, we have this unique facility created, wherein we have this distinction born into the great characters, which are really great because they proceed to study themselves, as we understand that no other dramatist could ever afford to make their characters to do. Stray from Prey. So on these seminal notes, which may be perhaps too brief to carry the conviction, I should like to come to terms with my deliberation and musings on the matter. Thank you very much.
Lord sir, for finding the stream of Indian knowledge tradition even in Shakespeare, and you elaborated on Maya in Dept, and also about Macbeth, the dilemma of Hamlet, and also about the essence of Gita. Thanks a lot for this extremely comparative juxtaposition of Bhartrihari and Shakespeare. All is well that ends well. Before we come to the end, I would like to request the organizing secretary, Dr. Kalyani Hajri, to propose the vote of thanks.
Thank you all for joining in this two-day international conference on Shakespeare, a rational, eternal voice that talked to the human heart of the human heart. First of all, I want to extend, on behalf of this organizing committee, I want to extend thanks to Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Sanjay Srivastava sir, for providing the platform, for being the patron, for encouraging us. I thank Professor Prasoon Dutt Singh, Dean, School of Humanities and Languages, who is the Chief Patron. Thank you for motivating us. I thank today's keynote speaker, Professor Bhavatosh Indra Guru, who has joined us from Dr. Harisingh, Gaur University, Sagar. So you are from a place where one of the India's greatest philosophers, Rajneesh, popularly known as Osho, had been a student. So we are very happy to have you here. I thank today's guest of honor, Dr. Prasad Sharma, who has joined us from Tribhuvan University, Kathmandu. I thank Dr. Meeta, who has joined us from Nalanda Mahavihara. And I thank our esteemed guest, Professor Indra Chandra, who had been working in the Central University of Nagaland. Thank you for joining us, sir. I thank Dr. Komal, Phuyal, who has joined us from Kathmandu, Dr. Akshendra Maximilian, who has joined us from Indonesia, Professor R.P. Singh, who has joined us from the University of Lucknow, Dr. Rajeev Kumar from MTU Rohtak. I thank Dr. Sharma Jha, sir, Head Sanskrit Department, for being with us. And I can see different faculty members, Dr. Patra Tomkar, Dr. Sanjay, all of you. It is such a delight to have you all amongst us. And I thank faculty members in my department. Dr. Patra, you are handling stage so beautifully. Thanks for adding the charm. Dr. Brande, Dr. Deepak, I'm so proud of you all. And of course, the convener, who is the grace of the occasion. Thank you, sir, for taking all the pain and for organizing such wonderful event for all of us. And all of you who have joined us, all the faculty members from different parts of India and abroad, and students, thank you all for being with us. Thank you for making this inaugural session a success. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, madam, for your generosity. I must acknowledge the industriousness of my students, who are without doubt more talented than some of their teachers at the time when they were students. I am very proud to say that they have worked tirelessly, and the achievements that they have got is great. We have already, in 8 years of history, 3 of them appointed as assistant professors. 1 of them got appointed as assistant professor at Rabindranath Tagore University, Assam, yesterday. We have Dr. Jay Kumar here with us, a former continuing research scholar. And our students have also qualified NET and JRF in large numbers, 11 qualifying in the recently concluded test. And they have also been helping us in all their capacity in of such academic events, also being exemplary in the classroom activities. And now, before we end this session, I would like to request all the delegates, the offline delegates who have come, to kindly collect the conference kit and do the registration process here at the adjacent room, Himalaya Kutch. After which we'll proceed for lunch. All the teachers and the delegates are requested to please join us for lunch at the education department. And now, please rise for the national anthem.
अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड़ उत्कल गंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्छल जलधि तरंगा तब शुभ नामे जागे तब शुभ आशीष मांगे गाहे तब जय गाथा जन गण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय जय जय